Isn't it very fascinating that a few thousand years ago, Earth took a hit, it tilted its axis, and with its elliptical orbit, it has beautifully choreographed the seasons that we experience today. And these seasons have shaped the world that we see right now. Seasons have knitted together beautifully the culture, agriculture, art, and even the way that we build. And these seasons are not just a mere backdrop. These are the characters that are identifying the human resilience and adaptation. So for million years, our species have learned how to adapt to this changing environments and seasons. And it's very important for our evolution that these species learn how to navigate through these climatic changes. This is one of the beautiful examples where our entire season, everything depends on the trees. As the evapotranspiration happens from the leaves, these balance the seasons and also the entire the seasons that we experience all across the year right now. And this is not just about the trees and the nature that we see, even as human species. And in fact, all the species that are around us have adapted to this. And we have a natural mechanism within us that keeps the thermal comfort, our body temperatures naturally cool. But as we are experiencing, as we are starting to adapt these mechanical solutions all around us, like the dependency on modern systems is increasing, the amount of energy that we consume and hence the carbon footprint is constantly increasing. So are we getting too comfortable? Are we getting too much away from nature and too close towards the mechanical systems for comfort? I think this is a question that we're asking within our work to see, is there something that we can do? And this is not just about humans, even as a cities. Like if you look at the cities is not just the spaces that we live in. These are ecosystems where all the settlements where people stay together and grow. Now let's compare our cities to microorganisms. If in a body, if there is a slight increase in temperature, how our body reacts to external viruses, we experience a slight increase in temperature, what we call as fever. And if it is 1 or 2 degrees, it doesn't really matter. But for a cities, even a slight increase in 1.5 degrees temperature can have devastating effect on urban heat crisis. And so is the immune system of the spaces. So is nature, are we moving too fast? As a civilization, are we trying to consume too much than what we should be? Evolution for millions of years has always been a slow process. And what we are doing right now, is that are we breaking this ecosystem? This fragile ecosystem around us teaches us that one has to be very conscious about and rethink about the way that we are building our civilizations, and not to create concrete jungles, but to build in harmony with nature. Traditionally, we have amazing examples that are in the past how architecture and buildings used to respond to the local climate. And now these are not just buildings, also these are manifestation of narratives and how people used to live once upon a time in the past. Every street corner used to have a story to tell. And every building and the materials that were used and the way that we have interacted with our surrounding landscape is a physical manifestation of a culture and how we have evolved over time. But today's date, the way we look at today from what we used to be earlier and now, we are shutting ourselves from nature and we're trying to use external environment and mechanical solutions and a lot of energy in the whole process. And there is a risk that in the process of trying to move too fast and consume too much, the amount of energy that we consume and the carbon emissions are exceeding far beyond our imagination. So I'm an architect. What I personally like to focus on is climate responsive solutions for our buildings and low energy cooling solutions. And this involves a study where we are trying to understand the symbiotic relationship between nature, traditional techniques, and how we can integrate it with technology in our work. If we can combine these two things together and see how we can move forward. So we came up with this system, the idea of CoolAnt. The whole idea of CoolAnt is to look at how traditional systems used to work in the past and remember those things and rethink how we can adapt to them in today's date and see if we can combine both the experiments, the past and the future together. So unfortunately, the paradox, while we are talking about cooling in our work, what is actually happening is that while we are trying to cool our spaces, we end up heating our external environment. And that is the biggest irony, is that while the whole process of cooling is counterproductive. So what if our buildings, if we learn from nature like the trees, for instance, trees take the water from the ground, evaporate from the top, and the moment you walk under a tree, there is an instant drop of 12 degrees temperature, 10 to 12 degrees temperature instantly when you walk under a tree. Can buildings learn from that? Can we try to mimic how nature and imitate that and try to adapt a building envelopes like that? And it's not just about the trees. In nature, everything that we see around us, which has evolved for thousands of years, has a protective membrane, including our skin, where it protects the microclimate inside. Now, when we're talking about, there is breathability within the spaces and how the inside and the outside interact together. So we thought, why not actually take some of the traditional systems like this? We have a rich culture of terracotta, natural materials, which have very low impact on the environment. Can we take that, and then can we see how can we impact it? So this is the first project where we tried using this in a factory. What you see on the screen is a digiset that used to throw a lot of hot air into the environment. So we took this terracotta screen, inserted in front of that, and it's a simple evaporative cooling system where as the air passes through this and comes out, the surrounding environment is naturally cooler. And we took this inspiration from a beehive as the bees try to collect its honey. So we thought, in the geometry, what if we start listening to natural forms, and if we can mimic that in the design? In the whole process, the idea is also that, take these and then combine it with modern technologies and emerging sciences. And if we can use the brilliance of technology, what we have today, go back 100 years before, look at how the pre-industrial era worked with some of these cooling solutions and how we lived, and then connect it with the scientific advancements right now, rather than focusing purely on mechanical cooling devices. So these are some of the other works where this another iteration of the same idea, where we are looking at how, for spaces, we have these breathable walls with evaporative cooling that is happening on the top, where the spaces can breathe rather than closing them to the external environment. So what we can have is a space that is open to the elements, have the ventilation coming in, and so on. Another such work, what we call as the aeroleaf, is inspired by leaves. Like I said, the evapotranspiration in leaves means that instead of having the water from outside, if the material absorbs the water, and as the air brushes through this and comes out, it can be naturally cooled. So we took this inspiration of a leaf and thought that what if it can work on a tree, and that's how we're getting the cooling under a tree, can we take that and mimic it on a building exactly the same way? So in this particular case, like an earthen pot, we have this system where we store water within the system, and slowly the water evaporates from the surface of this, providing cooling as the air brushes through this. This system not only is about evapotranspiration, it also works as a shading device for mechanical ventilation, and it can be oriented according to the sun. So as the sun moves, we can also have a potential to align it to get the best optimum performance. So idea is that in the modern buildings where we are obsessed about having glass and too much of we're trying to trap the heat, can buildings become responsive to the sun and the movement of how the sun is moving across the day, and come up with the designs that are symbiotic with nature? Another thing that we also are trying to do is, if we can use art as a medium, when we talk about art emphasizes on the meaning and purpose. And in here, we thought that along with the purpose and the meaning, what if they're also functional and also create an awareness about climate change and sustainability? So we're using some of the artworks where this is what we call as a cooling cacti. Now, cacti in nature are very symbolic for resilience, and the species can withstand high temperatures. We thought, what if we use that as an inspiration for work, wherein this can also talk about these systems and communicate this to the people, the importance of how these systems can even work in today's date, where when we think of a building, everybody thinks that we make a building and air conditioning is going to take care of all the problems. But solutions like this are not just enough. I mean, the whole idea about the work is also that, can we also take it to the masses? Because as an architect, unfortunately, there are only less than 2% of the buildings that are actually designed by architects. So the whole idea of sustainability is inclusiveness. And only if it is inclusive, it can be impactful. So can we make all the traditional systems that are there more accessible to people, affordable, and available with the help of by sharing knowledge as an open source platform? So at CoolAnt, we are also, whatever research and everything that we are doing, we are trying to keep it open to the public and also create systems where people can access this and to make knowledge and sustainability democratic and not to limit it to like closed loops and closed platforms. So that brings us to the question, what is the future? And whenever we think of a future, it is very fascinating and everybody has a different interpretation. And future always means that innovation and progress. That's how we are learned and that's how we are taught. But is it true? Is future all about trying new things? Because future, when we think of a future, it inspires our aspiration and at the same time, an apprehension looking at the current events right now. So, is new always better? Are we obsessed with change? Are we obsessed with creativity? Or is it okay to step backwards and look at evolution as the design process, and think of evolution as the key for revolutionary ideas, rather than being obsessed with always something new? So the whole idea is that if we can take the past and combine with technology as the hint to go forward into the future. So what we personally believe in is that as we stand at the intersection of the past and the future, it's very important that we have to weave these traditional systems with modern sciences where we can lay the foundation for enduring and resilient surroundings, benefiting not just us, but for the generations to come. So I think that is very important is that it's not about making decisions and creating ideas and moving forward, but it's very important for us at this point of time to make conscious decisions about our actions and what impact it has on the environment. Thank you.